So, in today's video, we are going to talk about 5 Russian books you should definitely read in this journey of finding yourself, understanding what's going on in life, learning good lessons, and so on. Never forget what I say in the beginning of the videos. This is a channel providing videos for people who need orientation, who lack good parenting, who are lost in translation, who haven't figured out life yet. So the books that I'm recommending are not necessarily the best 5 books in Russian literature, even though I consider them to be excellent. They are not aimed at a specific political topic or philosophical topic. They are books, sorry, that will give you general understanding of life, politics, people, that literally unveil the human soul. And in case of the books that I'm going to recommend you from Dostoevsky, because of course I cannot recommend Russian literature without recommending Dostoevsky, they really develop a deep psychology in each character, which is important for you to understand archetypical figures of the world, people that you will always meet in society. The people portrayed by these authors, they are people that you are always going to find in society. The psychological type, the archetype, so to say, you are always going to find them. So it's important to know how they are and how they work. So, as mentioned, today we're going to see books of Russian literature. And we needed to start with Dostoevsky because, of course, Dostoevsky was the master of writing about humans, the master of unveiling the human soul and revealing to us everything about ourselves that we want to know and that we don't want to know. And the first book that I want to recommend you to read is probably my favorite book from Dostoevsky, because it portrays a tragic history, even though people don't see it that way. And it's The Idiot. Idiot. I would like you to read this book because the message in the book is one of the most tragic ones you can imagine. Is one of the saddest messages you can imagine. If you read the book and you read it carefully and you study it, you are probably going to see more or less what I'm going to tell you here. You are going to understand that being a good person, being someone good-hearted who wants to help just because you want to help, because you have the possibilities, because you have the will, behaving in an authentic way, not wearing masks to be in society, will make people consider you an idiot. You are going to be considered an idiot, and you are going to be taken advantage of. And people will put you in the most complicated situations that might compromise your life. And in the case of the character from Dostoevsky, he even presents Prince Myshkin as someone who has some kind of mental issues that needs to go to a hospital for people with some special issues, so to say. So not only if you are a good person, if you are good-hearted, and if you want to help people, you are an idiot, but most likely you have mental problems. That's what Dostoevsky is telling us. Not because he believes that, but because this is the way society sees this kind of people, this kind of character. He's presenting to us a tragic and a very sad situation. And I think you need to read this because you need to understand that being like Prince Myshkin is beautiful, is what we should all aim for our lives in terms of being a decent person, a good person. But you are going to be seen from others as an idiot, as a weakling, as someone who needs to be taken advantage of. So let's move on. Second book I want you to have a look at in terms of Russian literature is The Death of Ivan Ilyich from Tolstoy. I'm sorry, I'm still convalescent. Why do you need to have a look at this book? Because if you want to have a journey towards yourself, towards understanding life, towards understanding what you're doing here, towards figuring out life, you need to face death. You need to consider the possibility of death. You need to think about it, and you need to accept it and understand what it is. And the death of Ivan Illich puts you in a situation in which you are going to live closely the experience of a man who knows he's about to die and his last transformations before that. You are going to understand what changes and what touches people when the idea of death approaches. And if you are able to process that, understand that, and digest that as soon as possible in your life, and not only when you are close to death, you are probably going to lead a better life because you are going to get used to the idea of death and you are going to understand that death is part of life. Everything that lives perishes, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And learning to live with it and understanding it is crucial for leading a healthy life. Third book that I want you to have a look at. Again, we're going with Dostoevsky. I want you to have a look at Notes from the Underground. Notes from the Underground is a very important book because the character from Notes from the Underground, who is he's confessing himself, that's what he's doing, who is confessing himself for us, telling us all his thoughts and so on, he's presenting exactly the situation of the actual human being. He is the living creature, the living character that presents to us our actual condition, our misery, our intellectual poverty, our desperation, our needless anxiety, our incapacity of doing something against the situation that surrounds us, our passivity towards life. And Dostoevsky presents that always, like usually he does, in a very rich way, full of psychological ups and downs, colorful descriptions, vivid explanations that make you really jump into the guy's psyche, jump into the guy's head, and live with him this anxiety that is driving him, because he recognizes his situation. That is the most important thing. He is not someone who is kind of fooling himself to a certain extent. He recognizes his situation. He knows how bad it is. And it's important to understand that situation because it is our situation, our actual situation. It was written over 150 years ago and it could not be more actual. The fourth book I wanted to have a look is The Government Inspector from Gogol. And why do I want you to have a look at this book? Because I think this is one of the best presentations in Russian literature of what corruption, irresponsible politic, dirtiness of the system, lack of care about the citizens and about the people they supposedly are ruling for, politicians normally have. And Gogol presents it in a way that makes you smile, that makes you laugh sometimes because of his irreverent posture, because of his comedic verve, but it is actually something to be very ashamed of, to be very thoughtful about, and to really consider whether living in such a system is something that we can sustain for a long while without perishing as society, because he's going to make you feel like all that dirtiness, all that corruption, all that degeneracy is fun. He's going to make you laugh at it, because it's just like you do in tragic moments in life. Either you laugh of them to not cry, or you actually cry. And he decides to make you laugh of it. He ridicules it, but it's a ridiculing process that makes you see how sick the situation is, how dirty it can be, and how low we've come, and that we urgently need to get out of that lower level, that bottom that we have reached. Last book I want you to have a look in terms of Russian literature is, again and always again we return to him, Dostoevsky. I want you to read Demons, that sometimes is translated into Devils, or who knows what kind of other translations you have in English. And this is a book, probably the most complex book from Dostoevsky, the most difficult to understand, because it is a net of intrigue, corruption, manipulation, old foxes in politics, making the young people do the most barbarous and atrocious things. People behaving in the most obnoxious ways in terms of lying, pretending, faking, doing things that they don't believe in but that are convenient for the moment. It is extremely rich in characters. There are so many characters you need to pay attention to in this book, and you will definitely, the other books as well, but above all, Devils, you will definitely need to read it more than once in order to understand it. Even if you read it calmly, following all the steps that I gave you in the 3 videos, you will end the book with a headache. Like, oh my God, it's really deep. There are so many things I needed to understand about in here. And I really want you to understand that, because what is happening in our actual times is that the youth is being manipulated by old foxes, either on TV or other social media or in politics or whatever, and they are believing the most ridiculous things you can imagine, because this is one of the things that the internet and the digital inclusion did. It allowed idiots and ignorant people to unite. And when you have a lot of these people saying something and reaching a huge publicum, the huge publicum will end up believing them, because you repeat it so many times that people end up believing that. Of course, if you find any other book from any of these authors that I mentioned, and from Chekhov that I forgot to mention, Turgenev is also good and you should have a look at him, and there are other authors that I could also mention to you. But you can read them without fear. You can read them because there will always be lessons to be learned. There will always be something to educate you. I suggested these 5 ones because of the subject of the channel, because of the purpose of the channel. But if you want to start Dostoevsky with Brothers Karamazov, if you want to start Tolstoy with Anna Karenina or War and Peace, you are always going to be starting greatly in Russian literature. And that's pretty much it for today. We are going to continue the series. We are going to pass by English literature, German literature, Italian, and of course, if there are people who read other languages, I can also recommend other things as well. See you soon.